Welcome to the Living Wholehearted podcast, where we're helping leaders live with integrity.
Whether you're a mom or a CEO, you're a leader, and how you lead matters.
Okay, we are back for part 2 of Amy Wolff and talking more about the Don't Give Up movement. Today, we're going to talk more about her book. We're going to talk about how to have convicted civility. That's a big word. We'll unpack that a bit and maybe talk a little bit more about being a mom of daughters. That is a passion that we have. Amy, you got the opportunity to tell more of your story in this book. Tell us. How did this come about? A lot of people want to write. A lot of people want to have a book. So even give us some insights on how does it even happen?
Yeah. Well, for my day gig, I'm a speaker. And speaking and writing are really two different skills. But I've always enjoyed writing too, whether it's blogs, mostly blogs, my blogs, that I don't do often, but they're out there. And so in around March of last year, May, when things went viral and got national attention for the movement, I had a literary agent named Mark reach out to me from New York and say, have you ever thought about writing a book? It's been on my bucket list. I just didn't know what the book would be about and said, sure. I mean, not praying about it, not overthinking it, but yeah, this is super exciting. It seems like strike while the iron's hot. It's hot. Which then got into this whole literary world of book proposal and shopping it around and interviews with editors and then the deals and the legal stuff and having to create an Amy Wolff LLC, and it's been a learning curve. My manuscript's due at the end of the week and then there's rounds of edits and I have no idea what to expect. You can help me out on that. But it's been really great for me in that I've been able to zoom out and take inventory a bit of what's happened, why did it happen, start to collect stories with permission and anonymously, but collecting all kinds of responses and why these particular messages matter. What is it like to love well? In fact, I have one chapter that was really probably my favorite. And the chapter starts with this concept that I put "You Matter" on a sign in my yard, not really realizing that I didn't mean it. I mean, I meant "You Matter" to the people who voted like me and believed like me and talked like me and looked like me. But I really didn't mean it for the LGBTQ community or people of color, not because I hated them or didn't like them, but I simply didn't understand them. And when you love someone, you give up more than grass in your yard. For a sign, you give up your time, you give up your biases, you give up your prejudgments. And I was so stretched, specifically the last 2 years. So right after the movement started, I sat in church and God, the preacher, Nick, said, okay, I want you to listen to what God has to say to you about your calling. I rolled my eyes so hard, they about fell out of my head because I don't discern God's voice clearly. And anytime someone says that, I'm like, oh, here we go. This is going to be so disappointing. All right, God, what is your calling for my life? I will show up and ask, even if there's silence. So I asked him the question, and sure enough, an answer came hard and fast and clear. And I thought, whoa, there have been very few times in my life it's happened like that. And the answer was, go be in the world. What do you mean? No, that's a lie. I knew exactly what it meant right away. It meant get out of your Christian circle, Amy. Get out of the people that are just like you and get uncomfortable. And that's going to require some thick skin because you're a rule follower and very black and white. And so immediately I knew, oh no, this is going to be really uncomfortable. A month later, I met a woman named Missy Bird. And we met at a secular conference, really just clicked right away, befriended her on Facebook. 10 minutes later, started scrolling through her profile and thought, no. We cannot be friends. We are opposites on everything besides being white women, opposites on everything. And oddly enough, we just started going to lunch and immediately talked about the hard things. I talked about how we disagree on immigration and abortion, and she's bisexual, worked at Planned Parenthood, practices witchcraft, and I just didn't know what to do with myself. But what happened is every time we left, we both felt heard. We both felt loved. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to prove my faith or preach the gospel. I thought, surely I cannot build this bridge by myself, that if God wanted to move in Missy's life, that he would, and I'm along for the ride, not the other way around. So I took all the pressure off of me to try to convict her, change her mind. I didn't bring up Jesus anytime I could, which was my MO before. And something beautiful happened. Missy started going to church. We did a Bible study together, her and I. The Bible's a really sticky one for her. She has some really complicated history with church in the past. So we started navigating this friendship. And at first we called ourselves the unlikely friends. We're just unlikely. Culture right now says impossible. And we both are stubborn. So we're like, watch us try. We started doing Facebook Lives every month, talking about very taboo, controversial things from our different perspectives. And people loved it. And so now it's become a regular thing. And we created a manifesto for how to survive 2020 with a political season amongst us. And we are about to roll that out. So I've learned a lot with Missy. I've learned what it's like to sit, to listen and empathize instead of sit to listen and defend. So I've really had to let go of being defensive and instead sitting going, if I had her life experience, I would feel that way too. If that was my definition of women's rights, I totally get why she's screaming from the rooftops. And for Missy, she's had to do the same for me. When I looked at her one day and said, Missy, I think I'm a feminist. I am a pro-life feminist. She looked at me like, what? No. I was like, yeah, totally am. And we didn't know what to do about that. And so we've learned to embrace nuance. She said, Amy, I own guns, but I believe in gun control, like more legislation. And I said, I don't like cussing, but I like 90s rap music. And she said, I let my kids watch a lot of TV and I'm a good mom. And I said, we just went back and forth. Yeah. And it's really taught me what loving looks like. And it's not about convincing or persuading or, man, it's changed everything. I don't scroll through Facebook rolling my eyes and being frustrated. And it has meant so much to me. And God has really showed me a lot. I remember a couple months after meeting Missy, I met Jenny Allen, who leads the If Gathering, an author and a speaker. And we met in a hotel bar. It was really bizarre. I had no idea who she was. Someone came, interrupted us and said, I'm sorry, but Jenny, your book saved my life. And I Googled her. Who's Jenny Allen? Who am I sitting with? And she told me something and it was perfect timing. And she said something about how she doesn't have time to evaluate everyone else's sin. She's too preoccupied with her own.
Yeah.
And right then God told me, hate your sin more. Always hate your sin more than Missy's. Always hate your sin more. And that has come up in a lot of ways. In our small group, unfortunately, experienced a divorce. And I was really, really angry at one of the spouses for their contribution to that divorce. That was really awful. And I remember praying for them, furious, just weeping. And I heard the Holy Spirit whisper, but Amy, do you hate your sin more? And that has been really monumental in me navigating people who are different. And sometimes when it feels like sin and sticky sin and really uncomfortable and the witchcraft thing, and it's just been really uncomfortable. But it's like the Holy Spirit keeps me in this place of non-judgment where I'm just going to be on my authentic journey with God and I'm going to not be ashamed about it. And I'm going to talk about it if it comes up, but I'm not going to change people.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So many good things, Amy. So I'm going to mirror back a few that come out because there's a ton there. But the first one, you're saying something that a lot of people want to do, but are scared to death. And I think it comes from a place of confidence. You talked about that in part one of being loved and being confident in that love, that you don't have to earn it. And that frees you up. It really does.
Yes.
It frees you up to be able to look outward and to know that you're not going to get rocked just because somebody else thinks something different or does life differently.
Right.
Again, releasing control. We talk about more in part one, so go listen if you haven't listened. But that piece there, I think is a struggle for a lot of people, that when we're afraid or we're insecure about who I am or what I even think, it's super hard to go let somebody else's viewpoints come in. The other extreme is being so swayed and just really kind of a chameleon, just taking on whoever you're with. And so what I hear for you is that convicted civility, that sense of I have my own convictions and I don't have to be afraid to hear your convictions, and we can talk about it and learn. And maybe God might do something with that. We're not forcing it. it's not up to me, I heard you say. And if God wants to do something with that, he will. He's kind of a really big God and will do that.
Yeah.
I love this story about you and Missy. And I love how in the moment you were surprised that you heard God.
Yes, very.
But he spoke very clearly to you. And he does different with every one of us. So not all of us. I even think about Paul and Peter. One was called to the Jews and the other one was called to the Gentiles. And so there is a freedom in terms of what God is asking of us. So if you're listening and you're like, I don't know. But if you're listening and you feel your own conviction, listening, it's probably because this is part of how you're made and how God wants to use you.
I think there are flags to know if you're in this place of offering empathy and unconditional love and being willing to listen. You know, when you hear another opinion and you just start to get so angry, or you find yourself sharing things, let's say on social media, that are super black and white. Oh my gosh, the world is ending. Oh my gosh, our country's going south real quick if so-and-so, and you start to hear this really divisive, sharp language. And if you love it, like, yeah, that's my side, that's right, and you fall into this us versus them language.
Big warning.
Yeah, then I think that's a red flag. So for me, I pay attention to my reactions to things, and that lets me know if I'm trying to shield myself or prove myself. I think it's really hard when I have a strong conviction about abortion. Then I sit with Missy and she tells me how women are miscarrying and bleeding out in hospitals that are Catholic based, and they're not giving them the pill to stop the hemorrhaging because it's the same pill offered for abortion. And so they don't have the pill and they won't give it to the woman bleeding out when that's what she needs. She's not trying to have an abortion. But abortion legislation includes not offering that pill. And so Missy says, why is that in there and people aren't getting treatment? And I will look at her and go, well, I don't know. That seems not as black to white. I don't understand why, I don't understand why it's so complicated. Why wouldn't they give it to her if she's not trying to have an abortion? And I get specific because that's what happens when we listen, is we learn that there's more to things. My opinions have not changed on being pro-life, despite now understanding and having more empathy for women who have a difficult choice to make. So it's not that we start to succumb to whatever culture says is right. And it's not me trying to appease Missy or get validation. But there's a liberation when we don't hold things too tightly and go, you know what? Maybe I don't have all the answers. My mind hasn't changed on this, but maybe I can see how complicated things really are.
Well, and you see Missy, you see her
Yeah.
and not her opinions. And when you can hear her story or her why behind it. And I think I've had the gift of doing that as a therapist with thousands of stories. And it's really helped me to understand the context of people's hardcore convictions or the lifestyles they choose or live. And so that isn't the opportunity everybody has to sit with a wide variety of people in the trenches of their stories.
Yeah.
And yet there are people right before us, like a Missy, that you wouldn't probably, you would have said no thanks before. But this time you were like, okay, let's see where this goes. And
I saw this play out. I can see the influence of Missy and I's friendship, which now we don't call unlikely. We're like, are we really unlikely anymore? It just makes sense for friends. It's changed so much. But I saw this play out at the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah.
There was such a stark black and white. You're either this or you're that. You're against women and their empowerment, or you're for sex on TV. Like it was one or the other. In my relationship with Missy, I looked at that conversation happening after the Super Bowl halftime show, and all I can see is nonsense. It's nonsense on both sides. And it makes you feel like the one in the middle that's going, does anyone see how crazy this is? Like number one, I think I wrote a response on Facebook.
you did, and it was beautiful. I did big thumbs up. I don't do a lot of reacting to people's stuff, but that was...
I think you even texted me.
It was powerful.
Yeah. It was this idea of, listen, those women worked super hard on that halftime show. Amazing talent. I mean, just super hard work ethics. I can applaud that. That's amazing. Also, I didn't like it when they were wearing nothing. And also I can see where people are coming from. So it was, my response was nuance. My response was, we pick a side and then we put in our stake in the ground and then we do this divisive rhetoric thing, and it's not civil anymore. And it just inhibits our ability to live with more peace and joy and acceptance, everything we want, we find ourselves unwilling to give to people who disagree with us. And so that was one time even recently I thought, oh my gosh, I'm responding totally different because of the grace I feel in these conversations of not trying to prove anything or make anyone decide to agree with me, but that we can go, I can see where people are coming from.
Yeah, it requires an enormous amount of humility, maybe some practice and learning how to listen.
So much practice.
Let me first say about your response. I mean, what I thought was so beautiful as someone who is passionate about the messages we're giving girls today, you said so kindly to say that, yeah, I believe in modesty, and that doesn't mean I have issues.
That's right.
And that is one of the extreme perceptions, is that to want to be a respectful woman where someone looks me in the eye and not at my chest, that means I have a story behind me that's impeding. It's more of it's a value system. But you said it so beautifully. And then also to honor and respect the artistry that was performed. Yeah. And I think the both and is really hard for certain wirings more than others. We talk a lot about core values, and the builders and the bankers are very clear path. It is or it isn't. And the merchants and the innovators are more gray. We like the nuances. It's more natural. So there is, it's harder for some of us.
I hate gray, friend. I hate gray. And yet here's where I found so much more freedom and love.
Yeah.
It's true.
Speaking from someone who is more clear cut.
Totally.
You've grown there.
Yeah. And again, it's not that I've wavered on really big, substantial things. It's that I respond to people different. I see people different.
You see the people.
Yes.
That's the key I hear. You're learning to see Missy and who she is. And she's seeing you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
She sees you. It's a two-way street, and it's beautiful. So, Amy, you are a courageous woman, and there are a lot of people listening that are probably cringing and going, "Oh my gosh, I couldn't do that." And I want to say, yes, you could. Yeah, but it's going to be a process. I don't think just one day you got here. This has been a journey, and it's been a profound journey. When you think about your daughters and you think about the way you're living, what do you hope that they will take on just by watching you? What are you modeling to them? Maybe intentionally, maybe unintentionally.
Sure.
But that you say, I really hope that they get this.
Yeah.
Get this.
I have so many answers flying through my brain. First, I yell at them a lot. I lose my temper a lot. I think before I speak a lot. I have a lot
You mean speak before you think?
Yep. Did I say that backwards? See, told you. I am constantly busy. My mind is in a bunch of places at once. I like to produce. I like to be busy. It means I juggle. And so sometimes I respond to them like they're interrupting my life.
Yeah.
And they feel it. So one of the things that I bank on is, man, I'm not going to be perfect at this. This is always going to be hard for me. I will be quick to apologize. Like, nope, that was wrong. Mom, no, I lost it. That you didn't deserve it. That was my bad. Trying to do too many things at once. So one of the things I'm trying to model is humility and just admitting when you're wrong. I bank on that a lot, trying to get asking for their grace. So there's that. I hope that they see even the movement and what's been going on that we discussed in part one, that they see what generosity can look like in the smallest form and in the biggest form. We specifically sponsor 2 girls the same age as Avery and Harper, and we sponsor their school fees in Mumbabe, Rwanda. I visited them now 3 times, and the plan is to take the girls on our next trip. And that was intentional in that they're writing them letters and they're interacting back and forth. And one of the things I tell the girls, my daughters, is I know it seems so different. You see their pictures and what they live in and what they wear. And I know it seems like we're more different, but actually we're more similar. Again, something I've learned with my friendship with Missy. And so I want to teach my girls the world is actually small, and they have homework just like you, and they have chores just like you. And so you are more similar than you're different. And I want them to engage the world with that mindset. There's solidarity, there's a beauty to our humanity. And then also, if we have more resources, we can share them. There'll be times when I probably overthink these things, but they'll be at Target wanting something. I'm like, listen, I know you really want that toy. How many toys do you have? And well, Jessica and Rosine don't have hardly any, but you have a whole playroom and you want more. I mean, this is where I have to be careful. I'm like, okay, overstepping a bit, but I try to get them perspective. That's what I see is really important with their age is perspective. The world is small. We can share our resources. And when we are more similar than different than the people that might immediately you assume you don't have anything in common with. I also want them to know I make a lot of mistakes in parenting. So one of the things that I fall back on is when the girls go to bed at night, do you know you're loved no matter what? You can't lose it and you can't earn it. And that's something they hear all the time from me is there's nothing you can do that will take it away or bring it back. It just will always be because that's God's love for me. And that's my love for you. Now, listen, we're 6 and 9. So ask me again when they're teenagers. If I don't feel like the love is as easy, I don't know. But they know that they're loved no matter what because that's what I grew up with. And I just wonder how that's formed who I am. And I so badly want them to have that security where they don't need validation from anyone.
That's the bottom line of a confident woman who knows that she is loved and can love others well. And that's so your story, Amy. And so giving that to our daughters, it requires that constant talking about it. I love it every night when they go to bed. You're reminding them they're not earning it and they can't take it away. And yet you're having the intentional conversation in the store when you're like, how many toys do we already have?
This is going to be a life lesson here in the aisle at Target.
And you know what? And sometimes the temper comes out and is like, seriously, how many toys do you have? I mean, that we can guilt our children.
Yes, right.
For a genuine desire that a 9-year-old has.
Yes.
And yet when we slow down and we have the dialogue, it changes the whole trajectory of that. And our kids get it. When it comes out snarky or impatient, you're quick to apologize. And that is an enormous gift that I think as adults we often don't give. And I'm going to tell you a quick story.
Yeah.
I had an editor who wanted to take out a part of my book, Courageous. I have a part in there I'm talking about forgiveness and how to model that to our kids. And the biggest way we model it is asking forgiveness from our children. Well, the editor wanted to change it. They said, don't you mean having your children ask forgiveness from you? But that is often a misunderstanding from we're the adults and we need our children to practice. But kids don't get it unless we are doing it and modeling it and humbling ourselves. And so I love that that's a practice in your home. And I know Jeff and I, we literally will use the words, will you forgive me versus I'm sorry. But as a powerful process of they have power to say yes or no.
You know, if I've noticed, I wonder if you've noticed this too. When I say, I'm really sorry, almost always their response is, it's okay.
Totally.
And I look at them every time I look at them and say, it wasn't okay, but you can choose to forgive me. So instead of saying, no, it's okay, it was no big deal. Instead of invalidating how I offended you or how I was unkind, instead of appeasing me, and you can say, I forgive you, Mom.
Yeah.
And so that's something too that we've corrected in how they respond.
I love that,
Don't
Amy.
brush it under the rug.
Yeah.
Like what I did wasn't right. And I will love you even when you acknowledge me and say, you're right, Mom, that was bad, but
exactly.
I forgive you.
I think it's honestly to bring it all back to Jesus. Sorry, Amy, I do that. But
I love him. That's
but
fine.
I know, but that honestly is the most profound part, I think, of our Christian faith is that it really doesn't matter what we do as much of what we do after what we did. And it's this coming back and saying, will you forgive me? We can, and your signs, I'm sorry, I'm bringing it all a whole
That's
circle,
good.
but I'm like, your signs just to say, don't give up. It doesn't matter. Your mistakes don't define you. Right. There's a way to have closure and forgiveness in repair. And so you're teaching your daughters how to do that in very practical, ordinary moments. Me too. And we have to do it a lot as fast-going, impatient mamas. All right. So I didn't close the loop on your book, and I am curious. When is it coming out?
Oh, yeah. I actually write about the girls in the book, which is tricky. I don't know how you navigate that. So can they consent at this age? So anyway, that's another side topic. But yeah, the book comes out in April. Guys, it takes so long to write a book. April 2021 is
so next year, not this April.
Year. But if you follow us on socials, you will see some momentum this summer with a very special project that will help A lot of people know about our movement in the book, and it's kind of the start of the momentum. So I'm super excited to announce that next month and hopefully build up for an awesome launch in April of next year.
So good. Okay, Amy, before we close, this has been amazing. And there's so many nuggets. So I want you to leave the listeners with one last little tidbit. And I'm putting all the pressure on you, but you're fast. I know you. You're fast. What's one thing that you feel like, going back to part one when you said when things are done and people are at your memorial, what's one thing that you want people to remember?
Well, that is a loaded question to drop on me at the end. You didn't even send that.
I got therapist-y on you.
I think one of the things that I've learned is that concept of just do it. You know, there are times to be slow and thoughtful and prayerful, of course. But then there are other times when you just hold outcomes loosely and you take the risk. If the risk is loving well, take it.
Take it.
And so instead of evaluating or doubting, I mean, I had moments of doubt for sure when I was putting the yard signs in my car. This is the dumbest idea I've ever had. This will help no one, right? And if I had listened to that doubt, that kind of blows my mind. So I hope that at the end, whatever the end is of our lives, that people said, man, she loved well. She tried. She wasn't perfect, but man, she loved well. So I guess I would encourage people, keep your radar on. Don't overthink. When you love well, love everyone well. And I think that's the best we can do.
So good. See, I knew it. I could put you on the spot. Okay, so this is my segue to be able to cheer on those that are interested in walking alongside their daughters more intentionally. And really, the things that Amy is sharing is woven into our Courageous Girls curriculum. We're helping girls learn and know and experience that they are loved so that they can love well. Exactly what Amy is living as a courageous woman and who is raising courageous girls. So if you're interested in learning more, it requires some courage on your part. It requires you to actually pray and think, who in my sphere do I want to invite and learn from? And I actually would encourage that there are people that are different than you and not just your best buddies. We really want our daughters to experience it month after month after month and have to learn how to sit in uncomfortable and to practice that and to learn from other women, moms, and other daughters in a consistent way throughout years and years. That's really the long-term vision, and it's hard. So I am doing a little plug here. So if you've been listening to the Living Wholehearted podcast for a while and you have been curious, check out Courageous Girls. It's mycourageousgirls.com. You can also get the book Courageous, Being Daughters Rooted in Grace, to learn more about how to live loved and to love well. And I am so excited that Amy's book is coming, but you have to wait a little while. But make sure you follow her. Where can they get how can they follow you?
Yeah, my Instagram handle is Amy N. Wolff, and Facebook too. And I love when people dialogue back on these kind of sticky conversations. I love it.
I love it. You dive in the deep end.
I love it.
All right. Okay. So until next time, thank you for joining us in being a leader committed to shrinking the integrity gap between the values we espouse and the values we actually live out in